Christian Giordano has been president of the New York-based architecture and planning firm Mancini Duffy since 2014, and its majority shareholder since 2017. He has seen the company grow to more than 90 designers, and more importantly, take a lead in bringing technology into the design process. Christian is also one of our magazine's past 40 Under 40 honorees, and he joins us today to discuss his firm's trajectory. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Christian, you've stated that you see Mancini Duffy as more of a creative and tech firm. How has that manifested itself in recent years?
So yeah, I mean, listen, Mancini, because we're an architecture and interior design firm, will always be sort of design first, right? I mean, in the end, design is what drives us. It's what drives our clients. It's what people come to us for, is good quality design, innovative design, thinking differently, how to use space or how to build a building. But part of our initiative here and part of attracting new talent to the firm, and part of just really trying to get in front of our competition was the idea that we also had to have technology that helped lead us forward. And with that, it became sort of almost like a little hobby within the office that we were going to start a design lab, was what we call it. And we'd have this R&D facility, and we'd kind of kick around ideas once a week. And everyone would kind of have wacky ideas. And I think it started, we were going to 3D print a folding chair. We decided that that was what we were going to do. That was going to be our innovation to the industry. And then it kind of led us down a path, to try to develop a housing product, actually a single family home, which ironically we don't do at all. That's probably one piece of architecture we don't do, is single family homes. But for some reason that was going to be where we were going to focus our technology. But it evolved into really, developing our own software that essentially is a collaborative software that pulls Revit and Rhino and all of the other programs that your typical design and architecture firm use, and pulls it all into one spot. We call it the tool belt. And that gives clients the ability to make decisions and gives our designer the ability to change things on the fly very, very quickly. And it's just it evolved and became our process. And it really has been very life-changing in the way our designers work and the way our clients interact with us. It is truly now a collaborative effort. And listen, we bake in the design side, we bake in, certain concepts or, things that sensibilities that we find interesting or a designer really wants to pursue. But it's always done in the end with this eye to design and an ear to listening to what the client really wants and needs.
Mm-hmm. Have you found that clients are expecting a technological solution as part of their projects more so than they have in recent years?
I think some do. More and more, absolutely. Definitely more than let's say it was 10 years ago, or when we started this probably about 8 years ago. But now I think, a lot of them think, well, doesn't the computer kind of do it for you? And sometimes it does a little bit of it for you. But I think that, yes, they're looking for a technology that's going to give them the ability to experience their space before it's built, or help them quantify the cost, or sell the space or market the space, whatever it might be. But they still expect a tangible sort of design process, right? They still expect materials and some of the traditional things that we normally go through. As much as, when we do an interiors project, as much as we'd love to replace the furniture mock-up with a virtual mock-up, we never seem to be able to do that. They still want a full-on furniture mock-up, and we get all the manufacturers together and they get the furniture to site, and then we walk around and kick the tires of it. We've tried the virtual version of it, and nobody seems to want to buy into that for some reason. It'd be a lot cheaper, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of tech, you started a podcast this year called the Anti-Architect Podcast, which I thought was a scream. What's its focus? And, how does it contribute to your branding?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really a play on words, obviously, the anti-architect, but I do kind of see myself and in some ways our firm as being, going against the grain of your typical architecture firm, right? That, again, we're coming at it from a very tech forward place. We're trying to be very accommodating and listen to our clients and give them good design. And then we really try to do it. My method here and all my partners here is really to have fun as we're working, try to create a fun culture, a different type of architecture firm that I ever worked at or that many have ever worked at. And, so we see ourselves as a little bit against the grain. And listen, the anti-architect, the name is really, it's to be catchy, number one.
Sure.
But it is supposed to be a critical look at what architects do well and what we don't do so well and where we can improve. And I'm trying to interview guests that have worked with architects or are some way involved in our field of the design, construction, real estate field, and give us some feedback or tell their story as to how they evolved. A lot of people that I've interviewed are, educated as architects, but then went on to be something else. And why did that happen or how did that happen? And then, or if I'm talking to an engineer, how can we work better with engineers? We have this bizarre adversarial relationship with an engineer kind of for no reason, right? We're all on this, we literally are on the same team. A lot of the times, we're holding their contract and yet we're all fighting with each other for some reason. And how do we better communicate? And how do we really move the profession forward? And I think everybody agrees that, in our profession, the architect, the engineer, it's not always the most lucrative profession, and how do we really get people to appreciate the value that we bring? And many clients obviously appreciate the value, some don't. And let's have a discussion about why that might be. And it's been a lot of fun. And I've interviewed people from all ranges of our profession and across all, parts of their career, from founders of companies to, project managers. And it's been, it's evolving to, I'm probably recorded about 25 episodes so far. I think there's only about 15 out now. But I've got a whole slate coming up. I mean, we've got them booked left and right. And it's taken off. And I get a lot of positive feedback like, oh, I've listened to that, which always throws me off because I can't imagine someone's actually listening to what I have to say, but people are. And hopefully some good comes out of it. And people hear, oh, this is what an architect thinks, or this is how an engineer works. And maybe I can contribute in some way to help move the profession forward.
Kristen, are there any common threads that you could pick up having done about 25 of these? Is there anything that you keep hearing over and over again that has enlightened you?
Yeah. So I always hear that, I have a few kind of gotcha questions that I ask right in the beginning. I think one of them is, what annoys you? If you had to pick one thing, what annoys you about working with an architect? And I think the most common theme is that architects don't really understand how much things cost. And I'm the first one to admit it, right? I agree. And I cringe when a client says to me, oh, well, how much do you think that'll cost? And I kind of have an idea. I could be so wrong. I could be spot on. Who knows, right? And especially now, there's so many factors that go into that very simple question of how much does that cost, that it's really impossible to peg down. But a lot of times, and this is what I've heard, is architects come at it from this, they know how much it's going to cost. It's definitely going to be within budget. And then of course it's not within budget. And then how do they come back around and kind of solve for that? So that's definitely been one theme. And then another theme, I always ask a closing question about, from everyone, what would you change about your career if you had to go back and look? And some people are, towards the end of their career as I've been interviewing them. And I'll tell you that every single person thus far in 25 or so episodes have said they wouldn't change a thing about their career. They love the profession. They love what they've done. And I love that because I love the profession, and everything kind of happens for a reason. And you see that, and everyone says that so far. So I'll let you know if I hear anyone that would have changed their career. But so far, it's everyone loves what they do.
That's great. You alluded earlier to the notion of doing a 3D printed house. And you've also said you aspire to turning Mancini Duffy into having a national footprint with tech that you've invented internally. Where are you on any of this stuff right now? I mean, where is the company in terms of its growth, in terms of how it wants to be a tech leader, and so forth?
Yeah. So the software that I described before, the tool belt, which you actually could go to a website and find it, that's actually patent pending now. And we are actively, getting some investors to take that to the next level. So that is certainly moving along. And that's something that we hope to sell to other architects or developers and the use of how that will work. As far as the 3D printing, we haven't 3D printed the house or the chair yet, but what we have done is we've really taken the 3D printer because of the ability of the 3D printer to make objects that you can't make physically without a 3D printer because of the way it works, right? It builds from kind of any point inward and outward, right? It doesn't matter how you build it. It has the ability to sculpt itself, essentially. We've done some amazing art installations in our projects. Yeah, so an LED printed brick wall in a lobby in a building we did in Long Island City. We did a 60-foot by 30-foot tall donor. All the donors that donated to a school that we did out in Long Island, all their names, we 3D printed them and then installed them in this acrylic sheet that literally is 60 feet tall. It goes all the way up a 3-story atrium. So we're trying to do things differently with the printer. Our goal was to never print cute little models, right? It was to do something to, again, advance the profession forward. And then as far as our national footprint goes, we are moving, and I think actually COVID accelerated that for us. We pivoted to a lot of our clients that were, in fact, not necessarily leaving New York City, but had other locations outside of New York City. And we've been able to start doing a lot of that office space. And our restaurant and hotel practice right now is booming. We're probably doing about 30 restaurants around the country. You'd be surprised how many restaurateurs are eager to open up, to take their brands that were successful, whether it's in New York City specifically or in the Northeast, and kind of spread their wings into other cities or other areas in the United States. So we're doing a lot of different, what I would call brand restaurants. They're certainly not chains, but I think of like a Nobu as a brand, right? And so we're not doing Nobu's restaurant, but that kind of restaurant that has a name, but it's a higher end food. And so we're doing those around the country, and we are in fact looking to open up an office in Miami and a few other areas throughout the United States, which we've got some projects out there and reaching now a critical mass to go national, in fact.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Your company famously survived the 9/11 terrorist attacks. You had an office in one of the World Trade Center buildings, and you also have survived the financial crisis of the 2008-2009. Now we're in a post-COVID era, and you're talking about expanding. What do you changes does your company need to make long term in order to make sure you have the right people in place and all, so that you can prosper in the times that might be coming up?
Yeah, I will say that yes, our office was completely destroyed in the 9/11 attacks, and I did not work at the office at the time. I did a really nice interview with Tony Sciarippa that's on my podcast that kind of talks about his experience that day and kind of how they got through that day, and thankfully nobody from the firm died, and how they rebuilt. But one thing that when I purchased the firm from Tony Sciarippa, he would always say, as a matter of fact, he even said it in that interview, that in many ways for the firm itself, The financial crisis was worse because it really when 9/11 happened, they lost physical space, and obviously there was a tremendous emotional toll. But their projects continued on. They were able to be back up and running in 5 days in temporary office space from J.P. Morgan Chase and from KPMG. But when the financial recession happened, the projects went away, and they were so focused on financial services, corporate interiors for financial services. I mean, that was literally their bread and butter, and that's what went away. And Tony always said to me, "You've got to diversify. You've got to diversify." And so when I came to the firm, that is something that we did, is we began to diversify. And so there's projects that we do that we probably don't advertise them enough. We do things like industrial and self-storage and manufacturing facilities, and those are wonderful projects. And those, again, in terms of national, are taking us kind of out of the New York, New Jersey area. And I think so. I think it's diversity of project types. I think it is investment in people and technology and making sure that we have new lines of business that come from that technology. And then also, kind of moving around the country and finding areas that need architects and need our process and need our design sensibility. And when we put all that together, it gives us the ability to kind of continue to grow the firm despite anything that might be happening. And COVID was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was probably, again, more tough from an emotional point of view. We're such a fun, great culture, office culture. And then, we went from a Thursday night to a Friday where we didn't go back to the office. And, how do you deal with that? And it was tough on me and my partners, but we managed through it. And we ended up doing these twice a week Zoom calls. I've recorded them all with everybody in the firm, and they were exhausting. I mean, we would do them at 5 o'clock, and sometimes they would go, people would drop off, but they would go till 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was interesting. And sometimes there was an agenda. It was, we're going to talk about this today or whatever it might be. And sometimes I would literally log on and I'd say, "Listen, I got nothing, let's just hang out." And then we would just start talking and conversations would break out. And it was really pretty wonderful. And I'm going to do something with those at some point, those recordings, because we have a lot of them. But we made it through, and now people are coming back to the office. New York City is busy, and I will tell you, I had been driving with absolute intention to continue driving potentially for the rest of my working career, and the past 2 days have been awful. And I am going to go back to the train because I can't take it with the traffic now. So people are coming back to the city. It's certainly busier. There's lines out the doors, at your typical lunch places. So as annoying as that might be now, it really is a wonderful thing to see.
Christian, thanks for the time that you spent with me, and I wish you good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Always good to see you.
And to our audience, this is John Caulfield from Building Design and Construction. Thanks for joining us.